Welcome to the Urban Renewal Commission meeting on Wednesday, May 7th, 2014. Convene regular meeting and take roll call.
Commissioner Mengelberg.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Benville.
Here.
Commissioner Neely.
Here.
Commissioner Roth. Commissioner Mumm.
Here.
And Chair Pauley.
Here. Moving on to citizen comments. Are there any citizen comments registered?
I don't have any.
Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to adoption of the agenda. Is there any reason seen not to adopt agenda as presented? Okay. Then we'll adopt agenda as presented. General business. 14-255-722 Main Street Grant Extension Request. Staff report.
Okay, thanks, Madam Chair. So we had approved actually two storefront grants and adaptive reuse grant close to a year ago, back in June and July, which is, I consider, and I think we all did at the time, a very important project on Main Street, 722 Main, which is right across from the courthouse. So it would be a mixed-use project in the end, where we'd have a corporate headquarters of a construction company above and possibly a restaurant or retail space down below. The applicant has been working steadily. I've been, I pass by that way every day, and I know they're doing a lot of work on that building. But I think they have run into some unexpected structural issues with the building, as we can probably all imagine. It's very old, and so they've been trying to work with those and mitigate some of those, which has taken a lot longer than had originally expected. So they have come to us and requested a 60-day extension. We have it in our criteria, our policy for the grant, that you have 1 year to complete the project once it's been approved. But staff feels that due to these kind of unforeseen issues with the building and the importance of the project, that we would recommend approval of this extension, so they can finish that. So again, the total grant award for all three of those projects would be $139,976, and we do have that budgeted in this year's budget. And so with that, I'll take any questions. I think we have the applicant here tonight who could speak to the project if you have any questions for him.
Okay, we have Commissioner Benville.
Yeah, my only question, taking a look at it, is 60 days enough?
Why don't you come on up, Ben?
You want to?
Yeah, please come up.
Hi, Alex Jansen, 17233 South Trail Ridge Road, Oregon City. Well, I think 60 days would be from the expiration, which is 30 days from now, roughly, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Eric?
Yeah, so the storefront grants would be August 19th, and then the new deadline for the, the adaptive reuse and one storefront grant would be August 19th, and then another storefront grant, the one that fronts 8th Street, would be September 17th.
And then 60 days after those.
So it's 60 days.
That would be the 60 days.
So the current renewal or expirations are June 19th, July 17th, and June 19th, and they would all be extended 60 days.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, I see.
Our structural improvements are done. If you were to go upstairs in the building, you would see essentially a finished space. It's very beautiful. It's, hardwood floors were all completed recently, and short of some finished painting and cabinetry, it's done. Structural improvements are done, and that was kind of the delay and why you still see a plywooded building, but couldn't order our window systems until everything was square. Right, sure. Square was difficult to achieve. So, but we're there, and the windows are here.
Yay.
Yay, yeah. So, I would say probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks you'll start seeing the boards come down and the windows go in, and so I'm optimistic. I'm always an optimist. So I hope I'm not here in
Right.
9
I'm in the construction business too, so
Begging for mercy.
I know it. I know how that goes.
They
You
all
have
have
to be
their little
optimistic.
personalities, all the buildings.
Yep.
Mayor Neely, did you have a question?
More of a comment. I'm glad to see you here because I've been wondering and
Yep.
wondering and wondering. Because
We all
I see,
drive by it.
at the ground floor, we see things happening and then stop and then happening and then stop. And I'm pleased you've come forward. How long have you been in communication about the potential? I'm going to ask Eric Underwood about the communication about the potential of an extension.
Well, since we sent out the midterm letter, so
Okay.
and then we've got that communication back.
Okay, so.
Okay, without it.
And this is a question for staff as well. If you offer the 60-day extension and the funds are budgeted this fiscal year, you would need to adjust the budget to
We'll
accommodate
need to
that.
adjust the budget. We'll have to carry that amount over, which we've done in the past.
So the structural issues that you encountered, they weren't real major. They just set you back a little bit. Everything's
They
going
were
okay.
pretty major.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It was the building's 100 years old this year, and it was not old world craftsmanship. It was it was what it was. So we're happy. We made a good choice in buying the building and developing the building. We're not complaining. It is what it is.
Well, we're looking forward to that open house.
Yeah.
See all that work.
Definitely.
Me too.
It's gonna
I'll be in here
great.
for a liquor license for that.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Okay, are we ready for a motion?
I'll move to extend the grant period for
I'm sorry.
for 60 days.
I'm sorry. It's been moved by Derek Benville. Can you read the
Okay, good.
motion?
Yes, yes.
Thanks.
I recommend the motion to approve the extension of 722 Main Street grant request.
And seconded by Mayor Neely.
Really?
Sometimes
Okay.
it just doesn't. Computers are wonderful.
And the vote. Commissioner Mum? Aye. Commissioner Roth is not here. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Neely?
Aye.
Commissioner Mengelberg? Commissioner Benville?
Aye.
And Chair Pauley.
Aye.
Motion
you,
passes
everyone.
unanimously.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Good luck.
Yes. Okay. Moving on to 14-257 Urban Renewal Agency Grant Criteria.
Okay, thank you. This staff report's in result to a previous meeting where there were some questions about the criteria of the grant programs and whether or not sustainability was part of that criteria, and if so, how it was judged and what does it mean, and how does it relate to recycling, recycled material. There was also questions about art and whether or not art should be included in a storefront grant as a bonus or as part of the regular criteria. And then there was the question about adding murals and how that would be treated if that was included into the storefront grant application. So basically, I will give my interpretation of the sustainability issue. The other items are for discussion. I think the Commission just requested an opportunity to discuss those other items. But I will first start off by pointing out you have in your packet the storefront evaluation sheet. It should be the second or third attachment there. It gives you the sheet of what we look at when we evaluate a storefront grant. And if you go down to
H.
well, I had it. Yep, H, thank you. Where it has sustainability. So it addresses materials that are durable, resource efficient, recyclable, and salvage. So it just kind of stays general as to what sustainability is, and it does address recycled materials, whether that be paint or other material. So that's how that's addressed there. And in the adaptive reuse criteria, if you want to go to that really quick, we have, it's the last page, I believe, in our bonus points. We address sustainability issue through the LEED certification item there. So they get bonus points if they do establish kind of innovative methods or low impact kind of design or materials. So any questions there? Does that answer the question that was brought up? And I believe it was Commissioner Roth who brought that.
Yeah, I found the storefront evaluation sheet to be very thorough.
Yeah.
So I thought there's, many things under each letter, each criteria. Commissioner Smith?
This isn't the full this is the criteria evaluation sheet, but this isn't the full criteria, right?
No, it's not the full criteria. This is the
Okay, so
evaluation.
that still exists.
Yes.
And because I'm thinking about, I think that goes even more specific in terms of specifically signage and awnings and.
Right.
Okay, so that still exists, and this is just. All right.
Just the worksheet.
Yeah. So I just provided the worksheet because I believe the question was how sustainability
Right.
was evaluated, how that was interpreted. So, and I was showing that.
I didn't have. My questions were specific to the murals and art, etc. But also, when we were talking about paint, I think Commissioner Ross' question was regarding recycle paint or to that degree. But mine was more, should we be approving grants for paint? And so I wouldn't mind having that discussion at some point if that's not the time to do that here. I think that paint, in addition to a major storefront improvement, should be part of something that we grant. I don't know anymore that I would agree with just granting paint projects. I think in the past, I think the storefront grants have improved. Have evolved. And I think we have bigger projects, and I think we have the ability to take on bigger projects. And to me, just painting an old crappy building is not the best use of our money. And so I would like to see us talk about that. And obviously, we have granted some recently that I was okay with because that wasn't our, they're basically following the criteria that we set up. I'm just questioning whether or not we should keep it that way. Because I think that, if a building's going to completely redo their frontage and construction, everything, that paint definitely should be in addition to that, and that should be part of it. But if it's just paint alone and that's all they're doing, we've had several grants in probably, since I've been on the commission where paint did an okay job, but even after a couple years of painting an ugly building, it's still an ugly building. So I guess that would be my question for the commissioners. Do we see that being an issue? The other one is, I think, a very complicated one, and that's the murals. I think that there's several pieces. One, how do we save the murals that exist? Because we've lost two, I think, in storefront grants, or we're on the verge of losing a second one. In some ways, that can't be helped because in some ways, some of the murals are in such disrepair that it didn't warrant, replacing them.
This latest one on 10th and Main, we're trying to save that. So
Okay.
we're going to disassemble that, and we're going to house that
Okay.
in a public
Okay.
works facility.
So I think part of it is the existing murals that are there today. I think that's easier to kind of. I think the murals that exist today and saving them is easier to put into a consideration for the storefront grants if a grant's coming forward with a building that has a mural on it. I think the more complicated one would be adding murals. I think we want to be able to do that as a city, but I'm not sure we can do that unless we have an art commission back, or some way to evaluate. And I guess that goes for art in general, how to evaluate what we want downtown, and that fits in with the downtown design guidelines, and a whole bunch of other things. And that may be too big of a
from my understanding,
topic
the
to
murals fall in. They fall within the sign code regulation right now, so they would have to go through that approval. And you're right, and so that's my concern with adding art to storefront. What is art? There needs to be some sort of, like you said, commission. I believe that's a whole another process. What kind of art do we want downtown? Can it be just any art? And that's hard to evaluate with a storefront.
So far I can.
grant.
And would you, Commissioner Smith, be available to explain art to me every time?
Well, the existing art I could, yes. So I think this dialogue should continue, because I think actually at some point having, we've broken up the storefront grants, to be specifically to the storefronts, and then we've broken off another piece for the adaptive reuse. I mean, theoretically, in the future, we could have another grant specifically for art or specifically for murals, and that might even come from Metro Enhancement, since that is going to double.
Yeah.
I think I would like to have a discussion about that, because within Metro Enhancement, we could say, well, we could continue to grant the grants in Metro Enhancement that we're doing right now, but with that additional income that comes in the future, we could set a piece of that aside for murals and art, and then I think that might be an interesting discussion for Metro Enhancement.
Not just downtown, though.
No, absolutely, I agree. Yeah,
So should we move that discussion to Metro Enhancement?
Yes.
I think that would be a great discussion to have. Yeah.
Well, I want to mention that we would love to just assume that the revenues for that program are going to double because the rate may go up, but
I gave it a period of time.
Well, also the use
it's not going
of,
to happen immediately. Yeah.
People are getting better at recycling and reusing materials, so what we're seeing is fewer. We're seeing less volume coming in. So I want to be conservative in how we estimate what we're going to get. It probably won't be double, but it might be another half over what we get now.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But that could be a discussion at the budget meeting.
Absolutely. In fact, that may be something that Eric proposes to me to bring forward in the next budget proposal. We might even bring it forward in the next goal setting.
Mm-hmm.
If we have enough revenue information by the time we get ready to do goal setting, and that would be a great topic, Commissioner Smith, to bring up then. Yeah. We probably will have a little bit more idea what those revenues are going to be, and then. When it comes, I did also want to make one comment about murals versus other kinds of art, and I learned this the hard way because I'm not an artist. But when you're trying to inspire people to do art, the more freedom that you can give them, and the less restrictive you are in how you address that. So, in other words, you get a benefit of their creativity. If you say it has to be a mural, you might be foreclosing lots of other creative things that they would come up with that you'd find very appealing but you hadn't thought of. And so there could be other ways of addressing this, to say we're going to give bonus points, for example, for a percentage of the grants if it has an art component. I mean, there's a number of different ways of doing it, including the ones you mentioned and the one I just mentioned. So I'd like to kind of bring that forward, and I think it's a wonderful idea, and like to explore that further. Hopefully we'll have a little bit more budget information and a little bit more money to spend to do that.
Okay.
One additional point, I think, as you may know, the city is going through its sign code again. There is a very tricky proposition to allow art and somehow separate that from commercial signage. Mm-hmm. To the extent you look at the content and say, well, art's okay, but commercial signs aren't, you're violating the Oregon Constitution.
Yes.
So
I think we could pray about it, though. I'm pretty sure
we now can pray about it after the Supreme Court earlier this month. So that's going to have to be part of the discussion.
Yeah.
There are some approaches that have been used, and it's making its way through the Planning Commission. it's easier to control the art from the ownership side when you fund it and can say yay or nay. But then to allow it to go on, you've got to allow all signs up. And so how to distinguish, how to allow what you want to have happen,
Filter out what you
filter
don't.
out what you don't, is an incredibly difficult thing to
Right.
do under our current
Right.
system. So,
Well, that'll be good to continue that conversation.
yeah.
So we've got some more questions. Commissioner Benville?
Yeah, so for all those reasons, I don't think we should pursue art or murals as part of this application, both application processes. The other thing is, in regards to, the use of recycled paint versus regular paint, I think that's getting down into the weeds too much, and that staff and the person who's applying for the application, that should be at that step. I don't think that it should be kind of a criteria if they should actually get the money for it. And then when it came to sustainability, I thought it was great in the storefront evaluation, but I thought the reuse isn't clear enough. One thing is LEED it can be very complicated, and I work with it every single day, and it can also be quite expensive. And so, you go from certified to silver to gold, platinum. There's tons of paperwork. It's a process to go through that. And I think that there should be some sort of basic points for sustainability. And your definition of sustainability in the storefront evaluation is pretty good. And I don't know why you couldn't just use that as another potential for the actual reuse application.
Madam Chair, I just want to comment on something Commissioner Benville is saying. I think it was about 3 or 4 months ago, the library showed a movie called The Greenest Building. And actually, City Commissioner Kathy Roth alerted me to that movie initially, and I watched it before it even appeared at the library. And the whole premise of that was that the greenest building is the one that you already have, and if you can find a way to repurpose it and reuse it, it's going to be more sustainable than any other program that you create and put in place. We're sitting in a LEED certified building, the toilets in which have to be flushed multiple times to get the same results.
Right.
So not every LEED thing it works. I know that's a lot of information, but not every aspect works. What we really want to do is be as sustainable and conscious of these resources as we possibly can, but we want it to work. We want it to be effective. And so I think you've raised a really great point. You're inherently being sustainable with this program by the nature of it, because you're not tearing down. This program is for existing buildings, and I love the inherent sustainability that's built into that already because it's working. So you're greener than any certificate is going to give you just by the nature of the way this program is set up. And so for that, I compliment the commission and the staff.
Yeah, ultimately, especially being a contractor, it's being a responsible builder, right? Not wasting material and using as much reuse. And it took something like LEED to make that apparent to a lot of us as contractors. But we should be doing that every time we build something. Let's see here. What was the other one that we had? I think there was another one about, landscaping, and I think that would be just overcomplicated for that. For about, planter boxes and that stuff. I think that was one of the items we were going to talk about, which isn't on this list.
Because that's temporary.
And maybe that's the reason why.
I think. Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, we're looking for more structural or lasting.
Yeah,
types
something
of
that
things
actually applies to the
that
structure,
won't
and so
die
that
and wither away.
wouldn't cause routine maintenance or something, constant maintenance.
So, and then as another future agenda item, I was looking at this reuse application, and I found kind of the proposed evaluation criteria and how you get your points was a little complicated, and I'd like to bring that, to have a talk to the staff and the commission, because it was kind of confusing on the 4 points versus the bonus points, and where does all these different criterias align. So,
Commissioner Benville, I'd like to encourage you to. You don't have to wait for a commission meeting or like a formal direction from them to share your great ideas with us. So if you send those to us in advance, Eric can start evaluating them, and see what we can put in place even before that happens.
Yeah, actually, I did.
He did.
Oh, you
yes,
did?
He
Yeah.
did. He
Okay.
sent me an
I
email
did.
One step
yesterday.
ahead of me there.
Yeah. And, ultimately, I can appreciate that because obviously it means extra work. I mean, you just went through this process of revising the scoring about a year and a half ago, right? And I can get it that staff said, well, geez, it seems like every time we have a new commissioner, we're reinventing the wheel again.
I didn't
get
say that. I didn't
And
say
you
that.
gotta-
No,
you
I
gotta-
I didn't know it, or
you
I
didn't
would've
say
said
that.
that.
I'm reading, I'm saying that myself. So I understand that, and you have to have priorities of all that you do. But I would think that sometime I'd like to review that.
Oh, thank you for your ideas. Those are good questions.
Absolutely.
So, Mayor Neely.
A couple of things. One, when I was looking at this, what is it, evaluate with the score sheet or whatever we call it, are these weighted at all when you come up with your total? And let me be specific. I was kind of smiling when I saw awnings, protect pedestrians from elements, well-proportioned integrated building design and surrounding area. And I think one of the requirements we put on one of the storefront grants and one of adaptive uses was to get rid of the awnings, stuff like that. Now, do they get 5 points for that? Because that's not what that says.
That's true.
And so I'm wondering if that gets weighted in any way in terms of
Well, we have
whether,
we have a 0 through 5.
yeah, but
Score.
you get 5 because we want them removed.
No, it's just, if they're wanting to install an awning, we'll look at that. It could be one of the more contemporary style awnings that is complementary to the building. Like I don't know if you've seen the ones out at off of 10th Street. And
Those would be of the non-cloth variety.
non-cloth, yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
Just kind of, they have the clear panes and they've got the
Yeah.
black iron.
The
The
kind of
flat
very
awnings with the
contemporary.
suspended.
And if it adds to the building, then we'll give points to that. So.
Well, it also says well-proportioned, integrated with building design and surrounding area, and the one taken down was not well-proportioned.
Right.
Very large.
Yeah,
Right.
that's only if they're including awnings or something to enhance the storefront. So.
But, it was intended to really be more general in terms of how do you weight those things when in fact something you actually want to reverse in the process.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's.
Is that total fixed, or does it take into account some of these things just don't apply?
Some of them don't apply.
And
Yes.
so
And so if they don't, then we
so-
don't score them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you just write an
So
NA.
we'll go through and look at the application and the design, and if it doesn't comply with something here, then we'll just take that out and we won't score that.
Okay.
So if they're not adding awnings, we won't.
So it's a,
Won't,
so
won't
it's not
even
going to hurt
look
them.
at
It's
it.
a total.
No, it won't hurt them.
Okay.
No, we won't even look at it.
I agree with Commissioner Smith in terms of painting. Painting's really maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
The only benefit I could see for us becoming involved if somebody's going to paint it in a way that's so incompatible with the surrounding areas or something, but that's almost like art, and I don't know how you deal with that.
Right.
I mean, there was somebody that was trying to suggest we change our historic, our codes on our historic inventory because somebody painted their building pink and there wasn't anything to prevent it on. But I do think in general that we shouldn't be doing things that are really part of what should be general maintenance.
Right. Well, that's easy enough to put in the criteria that projects that propose paint only will not be awarded.
Because the next thing is going to be funny, so it doesn't really apply to this.
So the last proposal that we had that was paint that was approved, it did get scored low. So if we would have had other competing grant applications at that time, it probably wouldn't have gotten funded.
Right.
So that's another consideration too. It was rated pretty low.
Yeah, because you would think that they would only get 5 points out of 150.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So you would think they would get at the bottom of the line. So obviously you just didn't get a lot of applications.
So it's one way to weed it out, or the other option is to totally eliminate paint only. So that is something to look at. Definitely. Okay, what was your funny?
Well,
Sidebar.
I said it was going to be funny, and nobody's going to laugh at it. But the water, what I was going to say, your low flow toilets. You have to go back to the old-fashioned kind that are water closets that are about 5 feet high.
Right.
Create some pressure and can drive that water through.
And that chain.
So
I love that.
Okay, Commissioner Mengelberg.
Have a couple thoughts. I like the idea of encouraging murals and art, whatever pot of money that happens to come with, because it really creates character and uniqueness in our downtown. It makes it a special place, a place that people want to come back to. So encourage that. You could offer bonus points to a property owner if they make the side of their building or part of their building that's appropriate available for a mural that an art commission would approve and that some other funding source would fund, because one of the challenges is to find a place for the mural. Then on paint, I'd like to push back on that a little bit. It's one of the cheapest and most impactful thing a property owner can do to make a building look dramatically nicer. Now, a lot of our buildings downtown already look nice and maybe don't need paint. So if we were to approve a paint project, it would have to be something interesting, something multiple colors, something, a scheme that highlights the architectural elements of the building, not just paint it beige, something that adds to the character of the downtown and adds to the character of the building. So that would be a caveat about the paint. And then in looking at the adaptive reuse application on the staff review worksheet, one of the things that I didn't see mentioned as an evaluation criteria, which I think should be considered, is some kind of demonstration of market demand. I mean, if they're adapting a building for office or whatever, there should be a reasonable expectation that that investment is going to create jobs and create new businesses downtown. Now, they probably wouldn't pursue it if they didn't think they could do it, but we're investing in them too, so it might be good to know that. And then on the evaluation matrix, I'm not sure if this program is only focused on downtown, but one of the things that's unique and special about downtown Oregon City, it's historic character, and so maybe there should be some bonus point that a business could get if they do something to enhance the historic character of their building.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Jonathan Stone, welcome.
Jonathan Stone, Director of Main Street, Oregon City. The reason I to put my name in is just to respond to the paint comment. There might be some significant projects downtown where the scope of such painting is enormous and where there will be substantial visual benefit to downtown. I like Renata's approach that it somehow enhances the building, and it isn't just in a maintenance perspective. But some of our buildings, through change in ownership or whatever, have been neglected with respect to that kind of maintenance, and so it's not just maintenance at that point, it's bringing back to sort of good repair in a sense. Then the second comment about the historic preservation nature, anything that the grant criteria can do that supports historic preservation on a sort of a more heavy scale is something that I know that our organization would support, since our best assets are historic assets in terms of further defining the character of downtown. So,
thank you. Good points.
So historic preservation is part of the criteria in the adaptive reuse. So we do evaluate for that, and that's a major piece.
Well, it says respects original structure.
Right.
Is that the?
That's the preservation piece. That's how
Right.
we look at that. Yes.
So it's pretty general, but
It's general.
okay, good. Mayor Neely.
Yeah, I came back. The potential of dealing with murals through the Planning Commission, through our sign code, bothers me a lot. We're talking, I think, something that's inherently important to the nature of the Main Street program. I mean, I think everything there relates to. In one case, it was the history of the business that was there, but it went back in time. When they developed the Main Street program, they actually went to Toppenish, Washington, which is the city of murals. And I would be kind of curious if we have to think about murals that way. I would like to see if they've covered those issues in their code somewhere, some way or another. I don't want these things to go through a land use process. Going through an arts commission or something like that is the way it ought to go. And maybe there's some way to deal with that legal concern you're putting forward, but you're talking about the community basically approving it and not a individual property owner.
Yeah, and to be clear, when I talked about the planning commission, what's going through the planning commission is a signed code,
Right.
And in that is a process that is aimed at dealing with murals. As far as Toppenish, Washington, I don't know what their code is. What I do know is that Washington doesn't have the same restrictions Oregon does in terms of regulating signs, and so that's an issue. I know that the city of Portland has been through several lawsuits with Clear Channel and other outdoor advertising groups about mural projects. They do have a program in place now. Some other cities do that either have or I don't believe any of them challenged up through the courts. So there are processes, and we've got one that you'll see hopefully when the Planning Commission finishes its review. But it's a tricky needle to thread to get it right, to allow the murals to go through and not have the impact on advertising. So we're working on it, but I just want to make sure you know that it's a conversation that we're going to have to continue to have.
Okay, is there any other discussion on the grant criteria?
I would just like to say that I will go back and get notes from this meeting and just compile all of the suggestions that I heard, and then we'll have another meeting if the desire of the commission to kind of go over those and see how we can improve the criteria for the grant period before the next cycle, which will be next May.
Okay, that sounds good.
So.
Excuse me. Moving on to minutes of April 2nd, 2014 regular meeting.
Move to approve.
Second it.
All right, Commissioner Mum,
Aye.
Commissioner Roth, Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Neely,
Aye.
Commissioner Mengelberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Benville,
Aye.
and Chair Pauley.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Are there any future agenda items? Hearing none. City Manager's report.
Thank you. I only have one item to report on tonight, and that is the Commission's probably aware, just from the newspaper and some of the news coverage that there was regarding the removal of the bridge that was collapsing. Well, some of that footprint on the other end was urban renewal property, and the city, Oregon City staff, kind of held the railroad's feet to the fire and insisted on an agreement with them whereby they would reimburse the city completely for all of its costs and expenses, and also where the railroad would do a complete restoration on the site. Now, if you're a homeowner and you're looking out at 150-year-old tree growth, restoration to you means that's going to be replaced as it was. That's not very realistic because it's hard to plant a 150-year-old tree and have it there the next day. So we held their feet to the fire. We required them to produce a landscaping plan that was certified. They have completed most of that work. We've been monitoring the agreement, keeping track of all of our hours, and we're close to a closeout on that project. And I'm just so proud of our staff, our city attorney, our public works department, especially John Lewis and Martin Montalvo, for monitoring this project, staying on top of it, and I'm happy to report tonight that Oregon City residents will bear no cost for any of that restoration, and it's we're talking about well over $25,000 staff time and other resources that the public would have put in but for that agreement. So just want to thank the staff for their work on that, and thank the commission for letting us let the railroad use your property. So that's all I had tonight.
Dave, we had the beaver discussion.
Oh, the beavers. I forgot about the beavers. Go ahead.
The Natural Resources Committee discussed and provided an advisory recommendation concerning some beaver activity and removing some trees down in specifically in the Cove area, but there is in other areas, obviously along the Willamette and the Clackamas, where the beavers would have access and to that type of habitat. How this impacts the Urban Renewal Commission is that one of the requests or recommendations is that consistent with the Cove plan that we had concerning tree removal, specifically around the Cove waters itself, where we've seen some of this beaver activity, was that the Natural Resource Committee moved to recommend protecting those trees that were identified for protection on the initial Cove tree removal plan and protection plan through assorted measures such as wiring or whatnot around the trees, leaving woody debris that is either dangerous because it's been chewed through or as habitat for the beavers to continue to utilize those resources if they are cut down, or trees that were meant to be cut down when the Cove project was done to not protect those and allow those to be the beavers to have access to those. The second part is really not necessarily the purview of the Urban Renewal Commission, but it's more of a citywide approach to dealing with habitat and beaver protection and resource protection associated with that. Really how this comes into play, so for urban renewal, is specifically around the Cove properties. It's obviously urban renewal property. You have a development agreement that you've been working on. There's multiple requests here in terms of urban renewal need to grant access to the property, think this is an appropriate use of resources. There's other larger city concerns, whether it be staffing or if it's volunteers, how do you manage that? How do you upkeep that? Or the second part of, do we do a comprehensive plan, which, like I said, are really the purview of the City Commission rather than the Urban Renewal Commission. But I briefed both Eric Underwood and Scott Archer on this, and so I guess I'd just turn it over to them to give some thoughts on that, and then we'd be happy to answer any questions that do come out of this.
I'll make a couple comments, and then if Eric has something. Just from the parks maintenance end of this, our department does a lot of maintenance around because of the trail and some different aspects of the open spaces through there. And when this recommendation came forward to our attention, we reviewed it. And while we can understand the request, there are just some logistical and kind of basic concerns about our ability to deal with how to manage this. I think Tony already touched on that. So our recommendation would be that from this from the maintenance standpoint, we really don't have the resources to address the types of things that are being proposed here, and it would be yet another thing on top of our list that's already, quite frankly, a little too long for us to get to everything. So we'd be stretched to be able to manage what was going on from a maintenance perspective, and then I think we have some general use of the property types of things that Eric probably has.
The timing is an issue as well, since we do have an agreement for development in that area. I think there are some liability issues, one being the fact that it's unimproved property, and another, it will be a construction zone soon. And so I think to establish I guess access for this group to come in and constantly maintain or prevent, this beaver prevention, I think is a bad decision to make right now, given the development that's pending.
Okay, anything else?
Yeah, I got a couple comments. One of them, putting metal netting around the trees. The difficulty is that the trees will grow into the netting, into the metal. It'll either strangle the tree or the tree can grow over it, and if you hit a certain point where you need to cut down the tree, you can get that tied into your chainsaw, and it's a safety hazard. Metal netting, I think, is problematic to use. I guess the other thing is most of those trees that are at issue are cottonwoods, and they are extremely dangerous. They can have rot at the top. We had a cleanup. It was when, I think it might have been one of our Oregon City cleanups when we were along the Clackamas trail there, the pedestrian trail that's under the city, and we had the whole about 15 feet of a cottonwood come down while we were removing invasives. It was nothing that we did, and it came down very close to the crew, and actually came down exactly between my car and a truck that one of the ROTC people had driven in. It just went right in between them, fortunately. So the cottonwoods are really dangerous, and those are the major ones there. I hope when we look at tree plantings that go in there, they're ones that are less susceptible to that kind of activity, and maybe some that are less preferred by beaver as well.
Good point. Anything else?
Not on that issue.
Okay. All right.
So it sounds like the direction is that this isn't something that we'd like to pursue at this time on the Cove property.
Correct.
Nope.
Okay.
The beaver can work on the other side of the cove, can't they?
That's right.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how to steer them exactly to a certain spot.
The beaver will find their way there.
Yeah, I
notice.
I think it would just be premature since
Yeah.
things are going to be changing over there anyway. So,
Okay, thank you.
all right, ready to adjourn the urban renewal? Oh,
Comment.
yes.
I just wanted to note that I observed the Elks building being painted, and I think it looks really nice.
It does. Yeah. All right. Anything else? Okay, adjourning the Urban Renewal Commission meeting.